Oh, we really want to um, say welcome and bring into our midst what Anita is going to share with us tonight. We're looking so forward to it. It's such an interesting and vital topic. Um, for all of us, I'm 85. I'm supposed to have been retired for how many years? 20 years? I never retired. I'm really like Frankel said, on the go, please God, until the last day of my life. So our creative abilities, our expressions of ourselves creatively in what we do to contribute to the world in whichever way we do it remains of the utmost importance. It is the golden thread that runs through, that keeps us going and takes us right to the end in a victorious way. So over to you, Anita.
Thank you very much. And I want to upfront that I'm absolutely new at this. I'm busy with the Introduction to Logotherapy course, and so not aiming to state that I know much. This topic has come about because of the work that I do and my own trying to find meaning in the work that I do. So it's a combination of that. I work a lot with students, postgraduate students that are leaders in organizations that are wanting to understand why they struggle with certain things, why they don't just love their jobs every day, why it is that they sometimes find that they love their jobs at one point and then all of a sudden don't love it anymore. There's things that happen at work. And so my own search in my life for wanting to find out why that happens to me as well, but also to understand the pressures of life, and that life is not only about work, and how that has an influence on it spills over into your workplace and your work, and also the same happens. Your work spills over into your private life, and trying to untangle some of these things. So tonight I want to caveat that this is really an introduction for my own sense making. It is definitely not a thesis about anything that I can claim. And so I'm hoping that there might be some discussion so that we can help each other find out what might be happening. I just need to try and switch off my Teams account here. Then also the second I want to offer to everybody attending tonight is my thinking was quite mechanistic in many ways. Now, I know that's counter to logotherapy, but I'm trying to sort of untangle what happens first, what happens next, which sometimes cannot be done in a mechanistic way. I recognize that. And the reason why I've approached this in quite a mechanistic way is because I want to make sense of a really complex phenomenon that I would like to explain to these students, but they're all working individuals. How can I explain this to working individuals that make it accessible to them as well, so that they can start understanding what's happening to them? And it's sort of really, really just the start of it, because I mostly feel that most of it I don't understand myself. So here it goes. I just need to find a way to share. Let me just try and close quite a few of these, and then that should help me. Apologies, there's another one that's open here. I'm not able to work at the moment on two screens, and that's why I'm having trouble here. So, I'll be sharing soon. Just get to the last thing that might be open here. Okay, just go for it and see what happens. You're just going to have to tell me what I'm screen sharing. I'm sorry, I'm in the Cape at the moment where I don't work from often. And that's my dilemma. Can you see the, well, at the moment it's showing references, but can you see the full screen? It's not showing the other one,
Yes, we see the
Taria.
presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Right, so I chose this topic as a very broad topic, as I've just explained, work's meaning and finding meaning in work. I want to acknowledge that this is largely based on various authors' work, obviously on Viktor Frankl's work, but then Patty Havenga-Kutzer, Therese Chantal's work. I have been reading very widely and trying to make sense of different things. And then my own colleague here at Stellenbosch Business School, Mias de Klerk, who wrote a very interesting article about the different meanings of meaning. And so I utilized all of this to try and make sense. As I said, it is a process of discovery. It's really a work in progress. I have more questions than what I have answers, and please expect non-closure. Right, so where this started from is how can any of us help when a person feels despondent or rudderless, as though they're caught in a job or doing daily work that does not make sense to them, especially when you're working with individuals that on the face of it should actually be very happy about their jobs. They have high-paying jobs, they have jobs that are very senior in organizations, and yet there's this feeling of despondency that sometimes sets in. And also, how can all of us help when what happens at work, in other words, what happens in the workplace, makes them feel fearful, uncomfortable, and causes pain? From issues such as sexual harassment to being intimidated at work, aspects that where they know that perhaps some governance rules are being disregarded and they're being pulled into it and so on, and that we see increasingly in South Africa and getting reported by these quite senior individuals in organizations. And so all of this is happening in the workplace. But as I stated earlier on, there's definitely some spillover from home as well. So I've sort of put together as like the double-barreled hypothesis that one usually doesn't do. When we consider work or a job, you kind of have to decide what are you doing and why do you want to do it. And so often the people come to me and say, well, I am an accountant, and why do I want to do it? Because I like working with numbers. So it would be very reductionistic. That explains something like that. And typically we would say, well, okay, that's plausible. You decide what you want to do and why you want to do that. Sometimes the why you want to do it is the portion that is not spoken about. It's more about the what that you need to do. There's a particular job that needs to be done, and you go off and you do it. The why is not always present. So what we find is that people describe their jobs very much in a reductionist way. So they'll say, I do my job because I need to earn money, or I want to do a job or work that provides me with the opportunity to earn the most money in the shortest period of time. So you can see money and money comes up here. Or for instance, I feel things are happening at work and I feel fearful about it. I feel fearful about losing my job because there aren't many opportunities in the economy as it stands at the moment. I feel fearful about losing my job because I'm aging, or that my skills perhaps are not up to par any longer in comparison to the younger group that's coming in. And so there's some level of threat that comes in. But very often it's sort of reduced to that as the reason that they're experiencing some type of suffering in the workplace. I want to acknowledge that there are many individuals also that will speak about work or their jobs, and these are two different things. But let's use them as a sort of collective for the purpose of this presentation, as they really love what they do every day. They feel engaged, especially when they consider the team of people that they work with. And they feel that they want to go to work every day. And this can be really engaging with their job, but they might also feel that they're in flow when they're doing their job, meaning that they forget about time and things around them whilst they're busy with their work. Now, some people do report this level of engagement and flow in their jobs, and so it's not always just this reductionist way of looking at it. Sometimes you get people that will report both, quite a reductionist way, but also that there are aspects of their jobs or the work that they do every day that they love. I also want to be specific here about work and jobs, in the sense that you may regard what you do every day, the work that you do every day, as a job, or that you're employed by somebody, or that you employ yourself. It's your job. But there are many different forms of work. Some of it is paid work, right? So we may be employed somewhere, or we employ ourselves. So we have our own company, and for certain of the tasks that we do, we get paid. But there is also unpaid work. And often this is done as unpaid care work, which happens in the private sphere at home. Whether it is that you're caring for another adult in some type of way, or that you are caring for children, that varies. But most people have some form of unpaid care work that they do. And what we do know, and I'm generalizing very widely, but we do know that in general, globally, women do a lot of the unpaid care work in the private sphere, mostly at homes. Right. So I'm really lumping all of this together. And the reason why I'm lumping it together is that our paid work gets influenced by what happens in the private sphere at home, and the private sphere gets influenced by the paid work. There really isn't a very hard and fast line between the two. So when people speak to me about the malaise that they feel in terms of their job or work, they talk about life. And life would include very often all of these private, personal, individual things, but also the economy, the global economy, things that are happening in terms of policies that are being withdrawn, tariffs that are being brought in, all kinds of things that lump under life. They'd also speak about the experience of a workday, as I've explained, either being quite comfortable and free to do what they want to do at work every day, but sometimes also feeling quite threatened or fearful at work. Some would refer to their home care that they do at home, whether they're raising children that need attention at a particular point in time. Often men would relay the fact that they may need to travel quite a bit and therefore cannot spend as much time as what they would like to with a family, and they feel as though they're missing out then on seeing their children grow up. And general relationships, whether that is relationships in their private sphere or relationships at work. And all of this is described in various stories that people say. One of the things, and this is written about quite widely by Teria, Patti, and obviously in Viktor Frankl's work, is that the dehumanizing or depersonalizing of work and what we do often sets in. So people will relay particular problems that they have in the workplace or with their jobs, and then the way in which it gets told is very much, or let me say, the reason why they feel a level of suffering in the workplace or with regards to their work is that they mostly because what happens in the workplace is a dehumanizing or depersonalizing. So you might become a number in the workplace, one of many people in a call center. Your work gets quantified the whole time and measured against other people in a quantified way, as though what you bring uniquely to the workplace every day that may not fit into a quantifiable matrix is not worth anything, and because it doesn't fit into the numbers, and you get compared to each other based on those numbers, you start feeling as though it's pointless. There's a futility to your job or the unique things that you bring, feeling in an emptiness. Many people feel quite overwhelmed. They especially younger people in their careers as they start out report a lot of boredom, or if the work environment in which you're working doesn't create opportunities for further development and engagement in building relationships, you may become bored and become apathetic. People talk about the rat race, especially in Johannesburg, that gets mentioned quite a lot. Also, that they ignore what they know needs to be done within a workplace system, for instance, that you can see certain things can be fixed in a particular way by, for instance, doing certain things. They know, in other words, the answer, but they decide to withhold that knowledge and keep it to themselves because they feel, again, this pointlessness about, I'll say what needs to be done, but nothing gets done about it. And then very much the issue of conflicting priorities. It's, again, either within the workplace that even if you are part of senior leadership, other leaders feel that what you're suggesting should not be done, or they downplay what can be done, or that you are perhaps more junior and therefore, or sort of in the middle bands, and what you suggest doesn't get taken up in a particular way, or again, between the private and the workplace, that there's conflicting priorities. For instance, like you have a young child that needs very particular attention at a particular period in their lives, and also the workplace doesn't allow flexibility for you to address that. And it's again the dehumanizing of what people are about when they step into the workplace, as well as dehumanizing the actual work that gets done and trying to reduce it to numbers. And so we feel this depersonalizing happening. So people will ask, what is the meaning of all of this? Should I continue? But yet I need the money. So I am continuing, but what is really the point of all of this? So I started my search around this, going to a lot of the more popular, let's say, trends or themes that most probably trends that are circulating at the moment to help people through this. And a lot of authors, in fact, if you go onto Instagram, if you go onto LinkedIn, any of these podcasts that are really mainstream podcasts at the moment, a lot of what being said is the word purpose, right? Some of them will speak about meaning, but a lot of them really speak about purpose. And even, somebody like Oprah Winfrey, a lot of the very, very popular media, social media, would recommend books that say you have to move towards understanding your purpose in life. And if you understand your purpose in life, then you will know what it is that you need to get up and do every day. Now, even in my own search, and I'm going to outline just roughly what at least dictionary definitions say about the difference between purpose and meaning. in my own life, what I've found is that I have started searching for this purpose, this one thing that would give me the aha moment that I then know that all my energies should be directed at this one thing. And if I do this one big grand thing in my life, all of the different pieces will fall together and I will feel fulfilled. But I've also gone into a tailspin with searching for this purpose because it feels sometimes as though it's elusive. It's too big. I can't really define it. And so therefore, I've started searching for other ways of explaining or understanding it, which has brought me to logotherapy. So just looking purely at the dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary says purpose means it's the reason for which something is done or created, or why something exists. That's a purpose. They also refer to it as a person's sense or resolve or determination. In other words, you have purpose in life, a more sort of a way of going about life, that you have intention or an objective, that there's intention behind something. But the last one, I think, is quite important. Purpose gives a sense of direction towards a particular goal. And I think this is where a lot of these self-help books move you to, is the thinking that you should have this one direction towards a particular goal. And that sounds amazing because it sounds as though you can solve all of the agonies in your life with this one thing. Then in the dictionary, meaning is defined as what is meant by a word, text, concept, or action, right? So that's meaning in the very, very broad sense, but also how we make sense of something and therefore understand it. The belief about the significance of something, which I think comes a little bit closer to Frankl's meaning of meaning, and then can be a strong motivator driving us to pursue something. So here's a bit of an overlap then with purpose. It gives us a direction towards a goal and a strong motivator. And we know from Frankl's work that meaning definitely is a strong motivator for us. It gives us a sense of calm, most probably, I find in my reading of Frankl's work. It gives us that inner peace of knowing that you're moving in the right direction. And if we compare then the difference between purpose and meaning as the definitions, then meaning is about the significance we ascribe to something. It is the why behind an action, while purpose is the what or the intended result. Now, in this search for trying to find a way forward around this topic about work and jobs, I found this useful, right? But it still directed me towards one grand outcome, this particular goal, this one purpose that you have in life, one purpose that you have with your job. And again, as I explained, you kind of get stuck there. So the summary of that is that I would say in terms of logotherapy is we have a will to meaning that drives us towards a purpose in life. So if we want to use the definition on the previous screen about purpose in life, our will to meaning drives us towards, and I think later on my summary is purposes in life. We know that there are, according to Frankl, 3 sources of meaning, which I'll have a brief look at. We also know that there is suffering in life, one of which could be the existential vacuum, but there are many, many others. And that finding meaning is a personal pursuit, a crucial component of human well-being. And I would want to argue that finding meaning is a foundation for developing a sense of purpose and direction in life. So I feel that meaning, you cannot find the sense of purpose or direction in your life if you don't find meaning in different things. But then I kind of got stuck on, okay, so is it that you first have to go into analysis paralysis about what gives you meaning? And then from there, you can move on to knowing what this purpose and direction in life is. So that was the one thought. Just quickly to come back to Frankel's work, there's also some assumptions in Frankel's work that one needs to upfront when you're working with somebody to try and explain meaning in life to them. And these are, you know, three of the assumptions: that we human beings have freedom of will, that we have this freedom to take a stand on the conditions that life presents us. And I think that's very agentic. It helps us to know that we can do something about it. Then the will to meaning, that human beings seek a meaning always in their lives. And then that there's overall meaning in your life, irrespective of whether there's suffering or not. And that in a sense, an individual needs to perhaps either just be made aware of these three pillars, or accept the three pillars as a way of being able to move forward. And I think there's most probably a lot that a logotherapist does to help an individual understand these three pillars. Whether it's necessary for an individual to buy into, so to speak, on all three of them before being able to move forward on understanding meaning, I'm not sure. That's a question that perhaps Teria can help us answer tonight. Then I started thinking, okay, the statement that I made at the beginning, when we consider our work and our job, we have to decide what we are doing and why we want to do it. Maybe it's not that direction. Maybe it develops as follows. You find meaning in what you are already doing. So you don't have to change what job you're doing or the work that you're doing, but you have to start asking yourself, what is the meaning in these things that I do every day? And therefore you find the meaning in what you're doing. Or you do something like a job that eventually gives you meaning. Again, similar, that over time you start seeing, if I look back, this is actually the meaning. I can find the meaning in it. We know that there are three avenues to meaning: creative values, experiential values, and attitudinal values. And I think everybody in the audience knows much more than what I do about these avenues to meaning. I do recognize these. I understand where they manifest in my life. And I think this will help a lot to explain to somebody in their job or work how they can find meaning, such as, you know, just being busy with a piece of work that really helps you to utilize your creative values, doing a particular small deed, you know, for instance, by finding a new way of having a particular process run in a company, and that would satisfy creative values. So it's not necessarily an artwork or something like that, but it taps into your innovation, which may be around processes or finding a new algorithm for a particular task that needs to be executed in an IT system, and that taps into your creative values. There are experiential values where you experience something or someone or nature, and this happens quite often in the workplace, where there's a particular experience and you contemplate that, or a person that you're working with. Or also we can find this in our personal lives as well, and so have experiential values. And then there are these attitudinal values, especially in workplaces more and more in South Africa, where there's a feeling of hopelessness of a situation. I can just imagine perhaps individuals working at the city of Johannesburg, and where a lot of things are going wrong inside that system. But irrespective of what is going wrong around you, you can take an attitude that you can do something about that. And these can be all avenues to meaning around work, that the work that you do. So then my thinking goes, maybe this meaning develops as follows. You decide or believe that meaning is useful to you in the system, and therefore you make it your aim to find it in your job or in your current work that you're doing. So it could be that you take a decision and therefore you find it. Or you first seek to understand what gives you meaning. So you enroll for courses, you start journaling, you go for therapy, you read a lot of books about it, and therefore you're trying to unpack what gives you meaning in life. And then you shape your search for work that matches with this meaning. Or you, have your own entrepreneurial venture that you create around what you feel gives you meaning, such as though you feel that you're actually, you have the power to shape meaningful work in that way. Or that you find momentary meaning in what you're doing, and that makes today better than yesterday. In other words, you may be in a situation in the workplace where your job or the work that you're doing is really something that's quite precarious. As I've said, working in a system that might feel as though it's not going in the right direction, but you need the income, and that's and I'll move to responsibility just now. And therefore, today something happens all through these values that we spoke about earlier on, the creative, experiential, or attitudinal values. You find a type of a moment of meaning in what you are doing, and therefore today is a little bit better than yesterday. And in that way, you little bit by bit build on that. I do want to step into the issue of responsibility, which is, I think, the one thing that in a lot of the self-help books is not coming through very strongly. And perhaps it's similar in prosperity religions and so forth, as well as the issue of responsibility. What do I need to do in return for what I'm wanting? And yeah, we can accept that we have choices and freedom of choice. This is what distinguishes human beings most probably from the animal world. That every situation, as Frankel says, poses a choice, but also has a responsibility attached to it. That there is responsibility towards your own life and your own fulfillment of meaning, but that there is also responsibility towards something outside yourself, society, another human being, or a higher being. And I just want to stop at these last two, where we're very often, again, in terms of perhaps leadership development that's given to people, coaching that's given to individuals about their job and their work, and the meaning in that, very often focuses a lot on the responsibility towards your own life and your own fulfillment, but doesn't spend a lot of time on the responsibility to something outside of yourself, like society, your even your children, or your spouse, or another loved one, and somebody that needs other types of care, or even the higher being. So this second part may be underplayed, but I've also seen many cases where there is an overemphasis on the responsibility towards something outside yourself, such that the individual loses a feeling of they lose all will to live, in a certain sense, or because there is such an overemphasis on something outside of themselves that there is very little that then is re-emphasized about the responsibility towards their own life aspirations and fulfillment and meaning. And I think that the aspect that is really important here is in Frankel's work is to think about those cases, to try and balance those cases the whole time around avoidable suffering. So if you are in a situation where you start feeling as though every day is so horrible because you know why you're doing it, but the why that you're doing it is overshadowing everything about yourself, or the other way around, that you're just doing it for yourself, but forgetting about other people, the people that you lead in an organization, in meaning the people that I'm a leader to, or the system itself that I'm meant to improve. If there's avoidable suffering, we have to avoid it at all costs and do something about it. And I think this has been a useful term for me, knowing that one's private life spills over into the work life and the other way around, that we've got to watch out for these avoidable suffering moments or situations and then do something about those avoidable sufferings. So coming back to the statement where I started, when we consider work or a job, you have to decide what you're doing and why you want to do it. And I think that this statement, and I'll end off soon, it doesn't just work in this direction, the way I've stated it here. And I think I definitely know that the why you do something may not always be linked to your own preferences, but if you feel responsible towards it, you'll understand why you are doing it. And then the what that you are doing may not always be due to your own preferences. You may be doing a work that is really, really boring, that really doesn't tap into your creative energies and so on. But if you understand why you are doing that job, such as the responsibility outside of yourself to care for a family and put food on the table and various other meanings, you will prevail in that which you are doing. So in summary, I think my insights up to this point have been that this issue of purpose is not a singular thing. And I'd really love input on that, whether our lives eventually have one purpose. I'm sensing that perhaps when we look back on our lives, we can see these strands of meaning flowing through it, and perhaps you could describe this overall purpose, perhaps in retrospect. But I'm wondering whether it is helpful to tell people to find this purpose, this one thing, and try and then build their lives around it, because I think there's panic if you can't find it, and what do you do then? So I think perhaps it's in every moment, which can be like from hour to hour, day to day, week to week, moments will be different. That there are these responsibilities, not just one responsibility, towards ourselves and something outside ourselves that we have to balance in these moments. There is this inner knowing and that voice, the consciousness that speak to you. And therefore, I think there are multiple meanings in life and in our work and in our jobs, and also therefore different purposes, and not just one purpose that is available to us. That is my presentation for today, and I really open up the floor to discussion, because I feel as though there are really many more questions than what there are answers. Thank you very much, Taria, for the opportunity to present.
It's such a pleasure, and wow, for you to start the first course for optimal living in the way that you are, what an outcome can really be expected at the end of your training. When you say, and you put the challenge to us, is it just a question of finding one purpose? And I hear a cry from your own heart to just find a way towards a greater clarification of who you are, what you are to do, and how to effect the overall purpose of your life. And you know, it's a growth process, and wow, what a beautiful place to start, where you've put so many hypotheses before us, so many thoughts, so many options as what you can possibly be, and that is where one starts. You know, I think it was Maslow who said that a good psychologist is not one who gives the answers, but the one who knows to ask the right questions. And that is how our life begins, with a questioning character. A questioning character. It really is a quest, and it's a quest that evolves. And you know, I think the best way that Frankl described our destiny in life is to fill the particular life space that has been given to us. And that means not just doing one thing, but to be in an exploration towards the meaning of your life in all its manifested and varied moments, that from this one core will to meaning, the search for what becomes a search for ultimate meaning, is that it flows into absolutely everything you do and everything you are. It's not a single thing, and yet, it is true that we become clearer, more set on the path, more filled with a kind of a desire and a determination and a resolve to become fully ourselves in every aspect of our lives. And it becomes a kind of singular call that can express itself in many ways, but it also expresses itself in the particular calling, the particular contribution, the kind of meaning of your life that eventually becomes actualized. Well, let me make it very real. I mean, did I, for example, when I went to study with Frankl, and I was, you know, in a very searching mode, okay? I was in psychoanalysis, and I was trying out various options. There were so many schools of thought in psychotherapy, and, you know, I couldn't find the thread. So did I know when I sat and listened to Frankl and felt profoundly moved by the fact that what he described about his experiences of what you said now, becoming just a number, a dehumanized section of a community that was to be eradicated in the Holocaust, and how that elicited what he called the defiant power of the human spirit to say, no, I have to become who I really am. Now, who am I really? I am one that can face what is happening to me, take an attitudinal stand, and then begin to do the things that are meaningful. What is that? To respond to every little challenge of the moment, to be a decent person, and an exemplary role model in how I deal with my suffering or whatever happens in my life. And then that response, like you said, responsibility, your right response to life is the essence of human existence. It connects. A meaning is a connection. You start, like he said, what you do to others how you respond to others in need around you, how you uplift them, how you encourage them, how you bring about an awareness that life is an incredibly precious gift, like when they would gather around and look at a beautiful sunset, and one of the people explained how beautiful this world can be. So it's on that experiential values of what is good and true, and loving in your interaction with others in around common values, that actually applaud the beauty and the wonder of life. So it sounds in a sense abstract, but it's not. It's very, very, very real, because connecting to yourself in that way, I will not be dehumanized. I will not just be a number. I will be myself, and I will be the best that I am. You know, the what I am, what I really am. I know I ought to be and should become. It's a goal. It's a goal to be myself. But how do I become myself? By serving. So coming back to work, if it has a service motive, but then what also struck me, in what you were saying about how people can be so frustrated in a work situation that treats them like a number, is that that is a situation to move out of, or if you can change it, to change it. Logotherapy is a revolution. It's a upturning of things that shouldn't be, and putting in place the things that should be. And what it should be, we should be a family, connected together around that which makes sense and is meaningful to all of us. And a real work that gives you a sense of fulfillment is when you're working in a team and you're feeling that your contribution matters, that is part of a bigger picture. And especially if this commission comes from the leadership down. We need leaders that take us under their wing, that, a management that acknowledges the worth of each individual employee, that seeks to give them work satisfaction through the way they are treated, through giving them tasks that really suited to their skills, and to make them feel that they're making a valuable contribution to the whole. Wow, that is work with meaning. And when you find yourself in something that does the opposite, it really is, to move out of it into something that really does speak to your soul, to your real heart of this is what I want to do. So your initial thought and what you ended with makes very great sense, Anita, to know, well, what am I doing? Is this really me? Is this really what I want to do? Is this really satisfying to me? And it can only be satisfying to me if I feel that I'm giving of myself, of my own, what I've been given, that I can give it back to other people in terms of my experience, my know-how, my wisdom. That is satisfying to me, and then that the doing flows out of this fundamental motivation. And thank you. It was a very thought-provoking, beautifully presented presentation, and in a sense, a kind of expose of yourself, of all your wonderful searching questions. You are on a quest. You are on a quest, and that is why logotherapy appealed to you. And you know what? If you're on a quest, what you're seeking for, you will find. It comes to you. It comes to you because it's an open-heartedness and open-mindedness that is receptive and that can recognize and you know that eventual aha. And there are many aha moments to the great aha, perhaps of a singular professional vocation. Like I said, that I know when I sat and listened to Frankel that I would be doing what I'm doing now. This is my life's mission. Logotherapy has become my life's mission. Teaching it, provoking it, using it with clients, living it. It really is the true meaning and essence of human existence. And teaching it through the framework of Frankel's thoughts, which was tested in the fire of affliction in the Holocaust and came out purified and real and something we can rely on and depend upon. This gives me great satisfaction and fulfillment, and I think that's exactly what you're looking for yourself. And I can promise you, by looking for it, you are certainly and have in many ways already found it. So thank you. Anybody else I let my thoughts flow, and oh my goodness, if somebody doesn't stop me. So please, some other contributions, please.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, please, Kanda.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anita. First of all, as you are presenting, I kept thinking of just telling you welcome. Welcome to the logotherapy family. And definitely, as Tere said, you are starting with a big question. And of course, it is a personal question as well. We would definitely have to look at yourself and find it. But as much as you have put it in a very academic way, I really salute you for doing that. And I'm just afraid that we might spend maybe more hours discussing this topic. It's a very huge topic, very important topic. As you know, we have many, I'm sure Sharon might share that as well. We know many PhD students, some who have committed suicide and other who have got very depressed after they've completed their training because that they got lost, not finding meaning, fulfilling their purpose.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah, so I really want to say you are welcome. There are a lot of things we can share. Maybe if you allow me, I would like to share two things. One of them, the concept of meaning. It's very tricky. It's very tricky, and I'm not even sure if I understood it myself so far because it's so much used outside there in many literatures. I'm happy you shared the reference of the plague. I think I'm looking forward to read it to see what he comes up with. But there are many definitions of meaning. I would advise you to maybe go through all those definitions, but be aware of Frankel definition because for me, I believe it's unique and should be separate from other definition of meaning. And the other concept, the concept of work, very complicated as well. Personally, because I'm working in in a psychiatric hospital in Pretoria, we have an issue of burnout, because I believe burnout for me is strongly related to the existential vacuum. So I thought, I came to think that there is a difference between work, job, and labor. They are from the way I define them. But guess what? Recently, I read her before, but recently I was made aware that another philosopher, Anna Arendt, she also talks about work. Actually, she's talking of crisis of culture, that we have lost the sense of work, what it is, because of what you are saying and what Terea had referred to. Our work has been reduced to, maybe I can just say this, someone apparently wrote to the entrance of factory, he wrote a sentence, check your brain out. So the workers, when they were getting in the factory, they were asked to check their brain out, to leave their brain out, because what was needed was just for them to go in and do this repetitive work and so on, which is very unhealthy. But thanks a lot. It's a very broad issue you have raised, which I hope and wish we can have more other occasion to discuss and talk and interact about it. But most importantly, you would have to bring yourself to live it, because that would help to get the answer as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kondo. Right. Anybody else?
Yes, Turia, I put my hand up, Sharon. So, hi, Anita. I want to just welcome you also to the logotherapy family, as Turia and Dr. Kanda have done before me. And yeah, I mean, I found your presentation really thought-provoking, because for me, I work as a counseling psychologist, and I work a lot with people either trying to work out what they want to do beyond school, or they're already working and they feel that that what they're doing is not fulfilling. And so for me, what the question that was coming to me is about seeing our work life as part of what we are, as part of a life worth living, that it's not separate. And so the notion that I think that comes beyond, is this work, is this job, is this labor, is career. Like, what is my, is thinking about career and how that adds into a life worth living, that it's not a separate domain. It's not that I have a life at home, or I have a life of leisure, and I have a life at work, but actually this is my life, and these are all intricate parts. So a question that came to me to add to your question about your two questions, what am I doing, why am I doing this, is who am I becoming? I feel that question is really important, that this is a question that is the ultimate question of meaning, because it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter how many goals I have, it doesn't matter, and that why am I doing this, it doesn't necessarily speak to meaning. I don't think it might just be speaking to creating some kind of rationalization for the actions of what we are doing. But it's like, who am I becoming? What am I being called to in this situation? What is the task nature of life? What is it calling me to do in order that I keep moving in the direction of my potentials? And that's the final destination, as I've learned, it's always evolving. And so, so really, I thank you very much for your contribution. It's got me thinking as well. And I look forward to hearing more from you.
Oh, Sharon, you beautifully put together what Kanda was saying also. Work is part of the flow of our lives, you know. It's not something separate. We don't live compartmentalized lives. We're not disconnected. The one is not disconnected from the other. If they are, we are in trouble.
Exactly.
If they are, we are going to have a crisis of meaning. And the anchor really starts with us, with our answering the call that comes to us every single day in absolutely everything. And if we give heed, we would certainly be led in the direction that we are meant to go. That's wonderful. Thank you, both of you. Wonderful contributions.
One other thing, if you allow Teresa, one other thing, Anita, you might look at is the issue Franco referred to in general, as Sharon said, about what am I becoming. One might ask the question today, that of success versus fulfillment in life.
Yeah.
That's
Beautiful.
another question. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Anita, you're on your beautiful way. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about someone like you that start with logotherapy from scratch, so to speak, with already such a wisdom of questions and of good questions that would lead to meaningful answers. So we hope to have you with us through the entire training, Anita. This is a tremendously important area that you are addressing, because if we think about it, work it takes up well, especially when you're still young and you've already raised a family and you're full-time working, it takes up the major portion of your life, the major portion. So it's tremendously important to focus on work as a service, as a contribution, and then maybe in the ultimate sense as a calling. Okay. All right, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Yes.
for all the comments. Also, I really appreciate that, Dr. Kanda, Sharon, and also Grant in the chat. And Teresa, thank you very much for the opportunity. And Panayota, I've been speaking to you many times, so I really just want to thank you all. I'm looking forward to this journey. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we're looking forward to having you on that journey. Great.
And Teresa, can I just make a correction quickly for the sake of the recording?
Yes.
And Anita's on the basic course. She's on the basic.
On the basic course. Oh,
That's
wonderful, right. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that's also a start. The optimal living course is an exploration that really takes off in the beginning of the basic course. So wonderful. Thank you for the correction, Pan. All right, everybody, good night. Till next time.